Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to my Week 9 Top 25 review. A lot of crazy takeaways this week, but ultimately a pretty whatever week. Without saying too much, let's get straight into this thing. A like and subscribe, a help, a comment always helps. Let's go. So before I do this one, I just want to do a quick chat about the Syracuse game because opening ESPN, I remembered it existed. For the second time, I missed this game. Whoopsie daisies. This game was pick sixville. I mean, 3 pick sixes, and the rest of the game was just, Pitt's defense absolutely shutting down Syracuse. Up to this point, Syracuse was a 5-1 team, but now they're 5-2. They take their second loss. Their first loss was to Stanford, so we probably already knew they weren't the best team ever, And they did have an all-right win over Syracuse, but other than that, Syracuse doesn't look too good, and Pitt is still undefeated. They are getting better and better as the weeks go on, but they are matched up with SMU this week, so I wonder if the momentum is going to be killed now. Now on to this game, Boise State at UNLV. I thought Boise State and UNLV were just going to play in an absolute shootout, considering how these teams have played and how their offenses have just obliterated their opponents. But, I mean, it was a close game, and, that doesn't look too good for Boise State at the very least, although, you can't really look at football like this. Syracuse beat UNLV. Syracuse obviously isn't the best team ever, and you're barely Boise State beating UNLV, but you can't look at it like that. That's not really fair, but it definitely does raise a bit of a concern because losing that game to Syracuse is kind of bad, but there's so many different factors that play into a football game like that. But Boise State ended up winning this one. I thought UNLV might be able to win this game, which actually, in my opinion, would have been so awesome. It would have been so amazing, but they couldn't stop that final drive. It lasted 8 minutes and 7 seconds. They just burnt the clock out running the ball. Of course, running the ball. I mean, you expect them to do anything else. I really don't want this Ashton Jeanty guy to win the Heisman. Dude, he did not have the best game ever. Considering, looking at it from this point of view, he freaking had 33 carries for 128 yards and 1 touchdown. And, I mean, that's just crazy that you have to carry the ball 33 times to break 100 yards at some point. I mean, yes, he is putting up video game-like numbers, but we have got to remember he is in the group of 5. His one good performance, and I'll give him credit for it, and that's why it's annoying to me, is because he had this really good performance, was against Oregon. But other than that, he ripped up teams like Georgia Southern, Portland State, Washington State, Utah State, teams that don't really have good defenses really at all. The only team that was a lower scoring game was against Hawaii, but even then it's Hawaii. They're 2-4. They haven't really played anybody up until this game. This was the one match we saw on their schedule for Boise State that could raise a threat from this point on, and he did not have the best performance. He did not have the best performance ever. He had a much better performance against Oregon. 25 carries, 192 yards, and 3 touchdowns. And even, nothing over the air. He isn't really like a crazy receiving running back from what it looks like, because he didn't have a good receiving game either in this one. But against Oregon, he had a much better performance and much less carries. Maybe UNLV went into this game saying we got to shut down that run game. But quite frankly, a performance like this, that was the last tough team on their schedule, and he didn't look like the best running back ever. I mean, they force-fed him the ball. 33 carries, that is a damn load of touches, damn load of design plays all throughout the game, just to amount to 128 yards. I don't mean to sound like a hater. I just think Cam Ward deserves the Heisman more than Ashton Jeanty. I just think he's a better player, and it would really be disappointing for me if Cam Ward doesn't win the Heisman, unless Cam Ward just turns around and falls apart. Because dude is also putting up video game-like numbers right now. He's got like more yards, more touchdowns, and something else that I can't remember than like the last 4 Heisman quarterbacks. It was like a stat that popped up while I was watching a game, and I was just like, are you serious right now? Like, that's insane. But, you know, I'm not going to get into that right now. The season still has much time to play out. But Boise State, from a team perspective, this was a huge, huge win. This probably just secured their spot in the Group of 5 playoffs as long as they don't drop a stinker. Road games can still hurt, and San Jose State played Washington State really, 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 really well. What a great game that really nobody got to see. Now, Boise State did kind of kick the crap out of Washington State, but that was also at Boise State. This is a road game, which, you know, things typically go different on the road. But other than that, you know, they've got a bunch of teams that are either 500 or less. Boise State's pretty much got their playoff spot. And UNLV, this was their chance to make their point and why they should be in the Group of 5 playoff, but they lost. And it was a good game, but they lost. So UNLV probably won't get into the college football playoff, which was probably expected going into this year, although unexpected that they turned out to be such a good team. Nebraska at Ohio State. Wow, dude, I mean, after turning the ball over 10 times against Indiana to turn around and hit the road again, but just play so much better. I thought Ohio State was going to thrash the Cornhuskers. I was like, they're demoralized. They just had a terrible game, and their season is like, I mean, they have a lot of crap ahead of them. They're probably very beat up and, you know, whatnot. They almost won this game. Oh, my bad. Mistype. It's supposed to be 21. Oopsies. 17-21 was the final score. And Nebraska could have won it on that final drive, especially with that really interesting targeting call at the end. But Nebraska wasn't able to do much with that drive. The Nebraska penalty pushed them all the way forward, but then they just decided to false start and make a terrible behind-the-line pass, and then another, like, terrible behind-the-line pass, and then 3rd and 19, he threw a dart over the middle, and it got picked off. That was how the game ended. I mean, I will say, man, it's a little blurry right now. I don't really remember it, but I remember when I was watching it, I was like, damn, dude, like, the refs really tried. Like, the refs really tried. And that's kind of crazy because, you know, you don't think the refs would try against Ohio State. It was a very questionable targeting call, to say the least. I think the problem was he didn't hit him with his helmet. He hit him with, like, his shoulder or something, and they called it targeting. So, and that literally kept the game alive for Nebraska, and Ohio State fans were not having it. But I got to say, man, listening to Ohio State games and watching them, their home field is like ass. They don't have a home field advantage. Like, nobody cares. It's not loud. It's not crazy. Like, it's just like they're used to it. I mean, as they should be, but like, the crowd is not like crazy, you know? It's not like Michigan. It's not like Penn State. It's not like Texas A&M. It's just baby. It's just not active. I don't know. It just feels, maybe that's just the vibe I get when I'm watching it, because I've never been to a game. Maybe it's much different. Maybe it's like the audio silencing or something, but I just never get good vibes when I watch Ohio State games, unless it's on the road for Ohio State. Like, if it's at Ohio State, I really tune out because it just feels like a boring crowd. But in terms of stats, this game was really low scoring. Both teams played really well. I mean, shit. Nebraska sure as hell decided to patch up their turnover problem, at least up until the very end, where they made their second turnover. They just failed a 4th down conversion, but that was their only one, you know. Like, I mean, Ohio State did fail they failed a 4th and 1 at the Nebraska 27, and it says Nebraska punted it? I'm confused. Oh, okay, yeah. I'm sorry. I'm being stupid. They tried to punch in a touchdown early, and they failed way on their side of the field, which held Ohio State back. That could have been 3. And then later in the game, like right before halftime, Ohio State missed a field goal, which led to a Nebraska field goal, which led to the momentum going into the locker room. Then Nebraska scored another touchdown. Ohio State threw an interception, and at the Ohio State 2, Nebraska couldn't punch in a touchdown, so that's probably a key point right there. But Nebraska was able to go 9 plays, 74 yards. Ohio State bounced right back. It was a pretty good game. I mean, I didn't get to watch it, but from what it looks like, it was a competitive and close game. Nebraska definitely turned up in this game and was playing much better football. I'm a little concerned for Ohio State right now. You know, sometimes teams just have bad games, but like, dude, looking at how Nebraska performed against Indiana, I don't know if that was just a insane momentum game or just a collapse by Nebraska, but it could have also been a really good defensive game. I mean, Indiana's dropping points. They are stopping teams and holding them to little points. I don't know, man. Ohio State could be in trouble right now. They've got to hit the road and go to Penn State this weekend. And ahead of the schedule, they do get to host them, but they've got Indiana on their schedule, dude. And Indiana looks freaking tough right now. Like, they actually look legit. It's not just undefeated anymore, so you got to put them in the top 25. No, they look good. But I guess we'll see then. Indiana, I guess we'll see then. But Ohio State must win this game against Penn State. They must. Like, if they lose, that could be it for Ohio State, because you just prove you can't compete with the top dogs. I mean, they did compete with Oregon, so there's a bit of an argument there, but depending on how the Penn State game would go, you know, Ohio State really needs a win there, pretty bad. Notre Dame at Navy. Glad I didn't fall for this trap. Navy fumbled the ball like 5 times or something. Ridiculous stuff. I said, you know, Notre Dame's defense has been the story for them this year. I mean, look at Texas A&M right now. Again, no foreshadowing. I've been seeing this video after video. But you look at that first game against Texas A&M, Notre Dame like locked up that quarterback, and now no foreshadowing, but there was a little bit of a quarterback switch in A&M, whether they wanted to or not, that ended up benefiting them. But Notre Dame's defense has been the story. They have held a lot of teams to very little points. The team they struggled with the most was Louisville, surprisingly, but again, sometimes shit happens. Your defense can only play so perfect throughout the whole year, and Notre Dame has done a really damn good job of doing that. You can, even the NIU game, I mean, 16-14, their only loss, that game that they just dropped, that's their only loss, and I mean, it was still very low scoring. Their defense was doing their job. So I think that's the story for Notre Dame right now. The question is their offense. I mean, if you get like a Notre Dame-Georgia matchup, dude, you could see like 6-3. I'm looking at Riley Leonard right now. I just don't think he's that good of a quarterback. He had his time at Duke. He broke out because of his big runs and stuff like that. And he's proven to be a dual threat, but only really with his legs. His arm talent is not being the best of its ability right now. It's struggling. It literally led to the loss against NIU. But I think Notre Dame, you know, has all the time in the world to bounce back. They've got the schedule to do it. They get Army at home, which is like one of their only ranked games, I think, left on their schedule, which as time goes on, until Notre Dame plays them, Army will probably just continue to win games and move up higher. Notre Dame is up to number 8 now, but they will have to finish off the year with a hard rivalry. I'm not going to lie. Don't blink twice for the USC game, man. Don't blink twice. Because USC they've lost so many close games this year, and their season's over. They're going to want to beat up their rival. But Notre Dame looked really good. Navy looked really bad, probably because Navy hasn't played anybody yet, but whatever. If you made it this far, I'm not sure if people really make it this far, though. I am thinking about making a video tomorrow about discussing the problem that we have in college football right now. It's like we are out of teams to rank right now. It's kind of ridiculous. We're literally out of football teams to rank. The next team on the list after 25 is still Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt is a 3-loss team now. Memphis, they're a 1-loss team. Haven't really played anybody. Tulane has played tough competition. Navy, you put Navy in the top 25. That means up at number 8, you've just got so much better teams. Louisville, UNLV, Arkansas, Louisiana, and South Carolina. Like, you look at it, we are running out of teams. I think teams that should be, or a team that should be ranked, I think, what's their face? Virginia Tech. Virginia Tech is a huge sleeper team right now. They have taken so many close losses, and to be honest, that probably should have been called a Hail Mary catch against Miami. Even if they lose that game, you lose by 4 points to the best team in the ACC. Other losses other than that, they lost in overtime to Vanderbilt, who has proven time and time again that they're a good team. And then the bad loss, or at the time it wasn't a bad loss, but now it's turning into a bad loss, was at home against Rutgers. But, Rutgers was actually starting off really good, and something has happened in that program to where they're going to fall apart, as well as Virginia Tech turned the ball over 5 times, and they still only lost by 3. Those are their 3 losses. An overtime loss, a 3-point loss with 5 turnovers, and a Hail Mary that should have been counted but wasn't. That's their losses, with Vanderbilt being the furthest from winnable game because they missed a field goal and then went into overtime and still won it. That's that. I mean, Virginia Tech has been snubbed game after game, and I think they will hit Clemson hard. I think they're going to hit Clemson hard, and they should rise up. I hope they're like the 3-loss team that gets in because they deserve it. I really hope so. Washington at Indiana, now that I'm done yapping about that. Indiana, one of the most fun teams in the league right now. This is probably America's team if your team isn't doing too good. I wouldn't say they're my team, but I'm definitely enjoying watching them. They've just got one game marked up on their schedule, and that is Ohio State. However, I wouldn't blink twice for this Michigan State game, dude. Michigan State has shown some capabilities. It's really just going to be up to how the quarterback wants to play. The quarterback cannot make mistakes. He cannot fumble the ball stupidly, like in that Oregon game. He cannot throw picks. That's one thing he definitely cannot do. Michigan State's kind of iffy sometimes, but their quarterback has an interception problem, to say the least, at least at the start of the year. It seems to have toned down a bit, but he does kind of throw quite a bit of interceptions, and Indiana has gotten a lot of turnovers in their games this year, so Michigan State could be a problem there. I think I was pretty good with this prediction, but I thought, Indiana was going to score more points. Washington actually had more yards than Indiana. Again, they just win the turnover battle. I mean, even penalties, there was one penalty for Indiana for 5 yards. Like, that's just perfect. That is beautiful. They just had one interception and a failed 4th down conversion. I mean, they're just stomping opponents right now. They are literally just stomping opponents. It's kind of crazy. They get to host Michigan after Michigan State and then at Ohio State, dude. That's going to be crazy. I'm so excited for that game. Indiana won here. Didn't expect anything different. If I would have told you that Indiana would be starting off 8-0 this year, you'd have called me crazy. And I probably would have never had said that in a million years. Even if it had to save my life, it would never happen. Dude, that's not even the final score. Unbelievable. It was not 17-31 or 34. It was 17-31. Gosh, what is wrong with me? It is really late. I'm sorry. I'm tired. I just want to get videos out more often. Next video, Oklahoma at Ole Miss. So freaking close, man. So close. Off by 2 points. I've got a nick for guessing Ole Miss games, random ass Ole Miss games in the middle of the year. I did this exact prediction last year in the Auburn Ole Miss game. Got it right on the dime. 14 Auburn, 28 Ole Miss. I did the same thing here because I was like, hey, it worked once. Why doesn't it work again? And it was pretty close. It was a good try. The thing is that really threw this off. I don't think it wouldn't matter because I would have been off by a point anyways. But their kicker missed an extra point, or it got blocked. I'm not sure. It's just that has started to become a really common occurrence in NFL and in college football. I've seen a lot of extra points go south and actually be game changing. It really shows how important that extra point is, and you can't count on anything on that extra point. It's kind of crazy. But just a little side note. Oklahoma, defense, good. Offense, bad, simply. Illinois, Oregon. Oregon looks unstoppable right now. They have that huge win against Ohio State, and then you thrash a Big Ten opponent that has been better this year. And you guys got to recognize Illinois played Penn State all 4 quarters. It was 7-14 up until like the final minutes of the game. Illinois played Penn State all 4 quarters. If Penn State beats Ohio State, it's going to be Oregon versus Penn State, and it's just like you got to question what's going to happen there. I don't like carrying like, oh, well, this team lost to this team, and this team lost to this team, so that means this team has to lose to this team because that just doesn't work. That just doesn't make sense. Otherwise, like the memes say, Georgia State, or no, like Kennesaw State should be able to beat Georgia because of that Vanderbilt upset and whatnot, you know? But Illinois got fried at Oregon. And Oregon offensively, like, dude, Illinois, if anything, has had a defense this year. Like they dropped that no defense game against Purdue, but like other than that, dude, their defense has been really, really solid. Their defense has held a lot of teams to little points, and they've done really well there until this game. And this game just got out of control, and it wasn't like a turnover fest for Illinois. They did have 5 turnovers, 2 interceptions, 3 failed 4th down conversions, but it doesn't really amount to anything because, quite frankly, a lot of those downs and interceptions came when the team was already down 9-35. Even at that point, they were down 3-35 when they failed a 4th down conversion. Their only bad interception came like right at the beginning of the game. Again, it didn't amount to anything because Oregon punted the ball right after. It was just Oregon's offense and their defense. Their team was just playing so much better. Like 527 yards of offense. You can't ask for more. Suddenly, Dylan Gabriel is playing at a Heisman level as well. Like he's got to get recognized for the Heisman as well. I do think Miami, if they can stay undefeated, I think Cam Ward deserves the Heisman. But in terms of Dylan Gabriel, he's also playing really good, and his team is, after all, undefeated. So I'm not sure when the Heisman ceremony is. Is it during the college football playoff or is it before it? Because now there's so many more games, but I don't really know. But Illinois got slammed. BYU at UCF. I tried to tell them, don't fall for UCF. UCF was favored going into this game. A lot of people were saying UCF would win this game. It just didn't happen. I was pretty damn close on my prediction too, just a bit more higher scoring. And UCF's points were just like whatever points. Like they were just like whatever points. I don't know. I'm sorry. That was the coach's poll. Okay. Anything that I said. Okay, never mind. No, I was looking at the right one. I just must have scrolled down there while I was being a zombie. Let's get to this UCF game. Yeah, BYU was just a better team here. They owned the time of possession games. That was the only, I guess, good thing about UCF was they managed to score and put up all their offense in 20 minutes of football, whereas it took BYU 40 minutes of football to put up theirs, but still BYU kind of toppled them in the yards. And they really played without making too many turnovers. Their defense forced 2 interceptions, and ironically, some of UCF's only points came from breakaway runs. Like there was at one point, I don't remember when it was. I gotta go ahead and find it. It's probably on this 4 plays. Yeah, it's probably on this 4 plays, 75 yards. Yeah, from R.J. Harvey run, 54 yards from the BYU 2. And it was just a mistake by the cornerback. He just bit too far, and the dude just turned on the afterburners and ran right by him. That was it. Other than that, you've got points in poop time. The score was 34-10. It wasn't close. UCF points after that. So, I mean, you look at even their yards and whatnot. Like, you look at what time it came in the game. It doesn't matter. Yeah, 12 plays, 89 yards. 4 plays, 60 yards. So, probably another breakaway run. Those all came when the game was, like, already over. Like, Iowa State just almost made too many mistakes and dropped one to UCF. That's it. Don't blame Iowa State. Teams do that sometimes. They just learned from it, and you better watch out because they actually won that game. They were still the better team, even with all those mistakes. 2 pick sixes and just letting them run it all over the field. That like, you can't let 3 breakaway runs determine a game and 2 pick sixes. That's just not good. Iowa State gets a rematch against UCF. It's a clobber. It's a clobber fest. And that shit is not happening again. That was the most phony revival of a team I've seen. UCF does have a really solid run game, at least right now. We'll see how stuff goes on because their running back has only been performing in these past 2 games. I don't really think he was performing that well in the games before, but I guess we'll see. Maybe UCF can turn it around, but UCF has some bad losses on their belt right now. They've got some really bad losses. Crazy that UCF is just a part of the Big 12 now. Like, they used to be part of their whatever conference. Yeah, they're 3-5 now with a home loss to Cincinnati, a bad home loss to Colorado. They barely beat TCU on the road by a point. They should have probably lost that game. I mean, they also they lost to Florida on the road, which Florida's one of the bad teams in the Big 12. UCF doesn't look too good. It's not exciting that they're on ASU's schedule also. That kind of makes me scared. Missouri at Alabama. Oh, my goodness. Sorry for the mic noise. It is an absolute joke that Missouri is still in the top 25. I said they were going to get killed, and this was their exit out of the top 25. No, they're still in the top 25, and they got shut out. They didn't score a point. And Alabama dropped 34 on them. This is an Alabama team that has lost to Vanderbilt and Tennessee. This team is struggling right now with the SEC teams. They're not a top SEC team right now in terms of record and in terms of performance. They're not a top SEC team. And you look at Missouri and who they've played, they got killed by Texas A&M, and now they just got killed by Bama. Quite frankly, Missouri is one of the worst teams, like one of the worst, not worst, one of the worst teams in the SEC. They can't compete with the big dogs. Like, they're scraping by Vanderbilt and stuff, which, I mean, I guess Vanderbilt was a better win. Vanderbilt probably could have won that game, but I guess that was still, that was a better win there. But you go up against some of the, like, fighting for a college football playoff appearance, and then Texas A&M, who's at the top of the conference, and you get killed by both of these teams. You're going to tell me Missouri's still a top 25 team? No, they are not. But that's the problem. Is then I go and look at it. I'm like, who can replace them? No one. Who? Vanderbilt, who's a 3-loss team and lost to Missouri? There's no one else. We're running out of teams. There's like no more college football teams. They're gone. Like, every year it feels like new teams are in and out, in and out. We're losing teams. We're running out. This team shouldn't be here. Just the schedule they've played and stuff. Better teams are out there, but who? Who? That's the question. We're running out of college football teams. It's crazy. Texas at Vanderbilt. I wasn't expecting this one to be as close. Hey, props for me getting the Vanderbilt score right. I wasn't expecting this one to be super close, but after all, it was like 27-17, and Vanderbilt scored a touchdown like barely any time left. So, yeah, 3-point victory, but you could have kind of expected Vanderbilt to play it tough, just not this close. But it just it sort of wasn't. Texas is definitely the better team. I expected them to hit the road and win this. I wasn't calling for a Vanderbilt upset there. FSU at Miami. Again, no upset here. At the start of the year, it would have been interesting. How about this prediction? 17-38, final score 14-36. That's pretty damn good. I'm 5 points away from it. I'll pat myself on the back for that. Penn State at Wisconsin. I expected it to be relatively close. It was pretty close in a more defensive terms. Wisconsin is a better team, but after all, killed by Alabama, lost to Penn State, then lost to USC pretty bad. I think those are their 3 losses. So you just look at them, don't really know if they can compete with some of the better teams. Don't know if you're quite top 25 worthy. LSU at Texas A&M. This was the only good game on this week. And I got to say, man, Texas A&M is rolling right now, which is really making Notre Dame look fabulous right now. Because every time you think about how good Texas A&M's doing, you got to think about who they lost to. And they lost to Notre Dame. Texas A&M is 7-1, and finally, for the first time in what feels like forever in which Texas A&M has been in the preseason poll, they actually end up being a good team. I called for an overtime game, and I said what I said. I'm not counting this one towards my record on the year, no matter how much I would love to right now. I'm not going to do it. I'll live by my word because I feel bad for picking against LSU so much. Now, LSU had an opportunity around every corner at the start of this game to score so much more points. They had so many opportunities to score more points, but they just didn't. You miss field goals. Yeah, like you miss field goals. You get an opportunity right before halftime at your own 42, and you just make mistakes, and you just can't get her done. You missed 2 field goals at the start like that, in which you could have been up at least 23-7. At the very least, you could have been up 23-7. Texas A&M was beating themselves down, but it was like right here when, sorry, I was about to yawn, when LSU is 3rd and 2 at the LSU 21, right when they threw this interception that led to the LSU 8, this was just where the game fell out of reach. This was just where it got too bad, too crazy, because Texas A&M scored points from this point forward every single drive. They threw that interception, touchdown, A&M. Fumble way down in the Texas A&M 4th and 9. It was a 4th and 7 anyways, so they were going for it. And they weren't going to get it, but they fumbled it. Texas A&M marches down the field, 60 yards, touchdown. In 7 plays also. 2 plays, 0 yards, interception. 5 plays, touchdown. 9 plays, 78 yards, touchdown LSU, but doesn't matter. Texas A&M, 4 plays, 75 yards, touchdown. And it was close at that point. Still, LSU scoring those points was big. That was their opportunity to turn things around. But boom, A&M right back at him. And then another interception leading to a Texas A&M field goal, failure on downs, end of game. They scored on pretty much every single drive except for that last one in which the game was over. That's where all the LSU interceptions really came from, was at the end of the game. So no clutch factor. LSU had 70 more yards of offense than Texas A&M. Both played exact on the time of possession game. Just one team had 2 failed 4th down conversions and 3 interceptions. The other team only had 1 failed 4th down conversion and a fumble. And Texas A&M, man, they made a switch. I don't know if it was because they had to, or I don't know if it was because they had to, or if their quarterback got hurt. But, dude, Marcel Reed, man, 2 for 2, 70 yards. Like, he threw 2 passes from walking into the game, and he threw for 70 damn yards. But the thing was on the floor. He had 9 carries for 62 yards and 3 touchdowns. Dude was just running all over the place. I mean, up until that point, the Connor Wayman guy was playing pretty bad. He was 6 for 18, 64 yards. So I'm not sure if he got hurt or whatnot, but the run game was just taking over The run game was just absolutely taking over for A&M. Both of their running backs were playing at really solid levels, but also their quarterback entering the race there at the end, the backup. So, I mean, if you're Texas A&M, you've got opportunities all around the place. You've got Connor Wayman, who can throw the ball, but if he struggles against defense, you throw Marcel Reed and try to run the ball. You've got opportunities, man. You've got a very, very unique offense that can get things done. I mean, like they threw in Marcel Reed and the game changed. The game changed completely. 2 for 2, 70 yards is kind of crazy, although that was probably just drawn up plays and stuff. I'm not sure if those were really like super insane passes. I wasn't really watching the game at that time, but 2 for 2, 70 yards is still really well. Connor Wayman against Missouri looked like a freaking superstar. This guy against LSU looks like a superstar when Connor Wayman didn't. So you've got two quarterbacks here that are up in the air. Kansas State, I said don't be surprised when it's close. It was close, so I hope you're not surprised. Kansas has lost infinite games this week, not this week, this year, to very, very close final scores. The only exception being that game against TCU. That's their only exception. That one just got out of hand. Even though they were like up and it was a well-fought battle, it just got out of hand at the end and TCU took it away. But I expected Kansas to perform well. They have a good team on their hands. They've just been struggling this season. I don't know what's going to happen to Jalen Daniels. I don't know if it's his last year, but I think Kansas might regress after this year. Just because they're losing their quarterback, they're probably losing their running back and their star cornerback. And Kansas is going to lose a lot of material that was supposed to make their team super good this year, but didn't amount to anything. And Kansas is falling apart at the seam. And it's not even that they're a bad team. It's just that the fact that they keep losing games in such close fashion. I mean, Illinois, ASU, Kansas State, West Virginia, those were all games that were really, really close up until the end of the game that just didn't go their way. I mean, that like you take those 4 games, like things could have gone completely different in those games, and Kansas could be 6-2 instead of 2-6. I think that's their record. Like, and then they'd still be ranked and stuff, like it'd be completely different. But instead, the tides were not in their favor, and they are a much worse team. And it really looks like shit because I think I had this team going undefeated, but whatever. SMU at Duke, I had no faith in Duke. Probably just their home field and the momentum of their little fart squad, but quite frankly, they could have won this game. They had 2 opportunities. At the end of the game, you kick a field goal, you win it. No, blocked. Goes into overtime. SMU scores their points. I couldn't fight the yawn. I'm sorry. SMU scores their points in overtime. Duke scores their points, but of course they try to go for 2. Being the underdogs, you want to end the game, and they just didn't get it. The play call was stinky, and you just heartbreak your crowd. Hit them with an absolute heartbreaker. But this would have been a huge win for Duke because I think they'd have been a 1-loss team going into this, so that would have made their name known. But you don't win, and yeah, there goes another potential team to be ranked. But that's our last game. I hope you guys enjoyed this week of football. I hope you enjoyed this video. Like and subscribe and help, a comment always helps, and that's all for me. Adios.